we were just bragging on Christine had a video performance the other night at Art Rat Gallery or Art Rat Studio. Christine, did you learn anything? You were stretching yourself there, right?
Yeah. So I've been shooting videos, like just little snippets over the past few years along with my still photo projects. Just off to the side, and I've been planning on doing some sort of air related or water related video at some point, but I wasn't really sure, what that would look like. So I was, Brian Coonahan introduced me to some people recently, and one of them's in a band, and he asked me to accompany them by projecting videos on them and behind them when they were playing. And it was, so I just said, okay. And so I decided, I just made sort of abstract video compilations out of the clips that I've had over the years to go with their work. And there was a bit of a learning curve with what software I was going to use, and I didn't have a lot of time. And it ended up being pretty fun. I had approached them like I do with some of my still photo manipulations, where I'm layering things in Photoshop and using different blending tools. And then the day of the show, we got together. I had 6 pieces that were 5 minutes each, and they had, for practice, they had their songs, and we paired the 2 together, and then we did it that night at Art Rat, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So it was a good, quick way to force me into something that was different and maybe slightly uncomfortable, but a whole lot of fun, definitely. So hopefully we can do it again, or I can do something like that again, or that these 5-minute pieces will be a jumping off point for something larger or longer, definitely.
Excellent, and I love that. Hope you're already looking toward the next project. So you stepped out there and apparently were rewarded in some way. Well, what did it feel like to you? How did it feel?
Every night that I worked on it, I was very, very excited. It just, to see these things come to life that I've had stored for years, probably in some cases. And then even during the, I think it opened up a lot of possibilities. It helped me by having that bit of time and having, just kind of impulsively saying yes to this. It forced me into something that I've been dragging my feet on for a while, that I just had in the idea phase, but never really realized. And then even during that event, a couple people who know I'm partnering with Stormwater said that, because I had some water stuff in there, they said that it looked like there were possibilities for this with Stormwater, which has also been in the back of my head as well. So it feels like it's sort of moving towards something that has just been mostly in my head.
Can I ask, Christine, are you doing an Art Matters project? And if so, what it is?
I'm the artist in residence for Stormwater, so I'll have an Art Matters grant to accompany that. It's going to be probably a series of smaller projects. The first kickoff will be at Go Fest, in which I'm standing in trash that we collected at the Tinker Creek cleanup day, and I'm scanning that in, and we're having 2 foot by 3 foot long sandwich boards. So I have 4 of those images on the sandwich boards, and then I'm going to do a 8 foot long banner of trash, scanned trash. And that's step 1, and we'll see how we like that. And then that could lead to bigger banners in different places, and then maybe a video project at some point. I'm not sure about the rest of it yet. I'm still mulling over some possibilities, and I'm going to talk with them. I'll be in the booth with them too for Go Fest for a few hours on Saturday and Sunday, so that will give me a chance to see more of what they're doing, and then to talk with them about some ideas as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of putting your foot out there and trying things in a small way, seeing how people respond to them, scaling up from there. And I also liked how you said, I think you used the word impulse when you said yes, when you were asked about the performance. And there's some there's something there too on that kind of that gut response where you where you say yes and you commit and you're like, okay, well now I've got to do it.
Right. And it felt right. And it felt right the whole time. So I'm very excited about that, because even though I was exhausted and wish I had more time, like the whole time I was very excited and glad I did it. And I have to say, just shout out to Art Rat. They're such a welcoming community and experimental, and it's a great place to do things and to try things and to be experimental. And it was great to work in that space as well and have those people, the people that attended there, and just be very kind and supportive too. And shout out to Ralph and Brian too for opening their doors, and Ralph for all his efforts into having these events too.
And folks can find them on Facebook if you're on Facebook, right? To look for Art Rat Studio. Yeah.
Ralph is very active with recording events and posting them on YouTube, and then putting up invites on Facebook regularly. Great.
And John and Susan, thanks for popping in. Sorry about the trouble getting in. But we're cool. Just catching up and reflecting on anything that's happened over the past week, or any lessons you learned. Anybody else have anything to add? Catherine.
Well, I just want to Christine mentioning Brian Coonahan. I'm just really happy that people are getting to know each other through this networking that we've created, because I still feel like that groundwork for me is super important. Being a working artist home alone a lot, meeting other people through this network has just been really wonderful. I'm very grateful for that. But I want to mention that one of the collaborations that has come is Brian is friends with me and friends with my daughter, and he got inspired to go down to the West End Makers Market at Golden Cactus and hung out there. John was there. We had fun, but he brought his big heads and interacted with the public and was working on stuff. So it was just a really great way to talk about his project, the parade. And also just was fun. It was fun for me to have him there. It was fun to hang out with John. So I just want to invite you all to that anytime. They decided to do it every Wednesday while it's nice weather. It's fun to just get out and just meet that socializing need and kind of drum up interest in a project if you have a project, or just hang out, so that's my.
What time is it again, Catherine?
It's the event itself is from 5 to 8:30, and anybody that wants to participate, just let me know, but it's pretty easy going. They're very welcoming, and the guy who's running the show is named Patrick, and he is with the Food Hut. So they're welcoming, there's no charge. It's just a very sweet little community makers market.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's on Wednesday nights while the
every Wednesday night until and I think they're gonna just try to keep it going. And I even asked about cold weather, and they said when it gets really cold, they'll just move it inside the brewery. So it's the trickiest part is parking. So it's the corner of 2nd and 5th Street. If you're familiar with downtown Roanoke, it's not a big deal, but if you're not, parking is very tricky. That would be my only thing. Plan ahead to know where you're going to park before you head that way.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. Does anybody else have anything? All right. Well, that we'll hop back. I'll share my screen again. Okay. And so our just a few updates pretty briefly. Again, we've got the schedule out with all with everything that's coming up, and next week so far I think we have 5 more slots last time I looked, Catherine, for your workshop coming up on October 11th. So folks should sign up for that now if you're interested. So 5 more slots for from artist to business owner. And then the next week you won't have to sign up. It'll be virtual. And Katie will be leading us through hosting effective meetings as community artist. And then there will be another in-person one that'll be at Ursula's Cafe, and Catherine Schnabel will be leading us through that on October 25th. So those are the next 3 weeks, taking us all the way through October. The Golden Key scavenger hunt is still happening downtown. If you happen to be downtown, and the brewery is one of the locations, if you find 6 golden keys in businesses, it's actually a big golden key. If you find 6 golden keys, you can you'll be entered, and you drop your little booklet off. Every location has a booklet. you get 6 keys and you drop your booklet off. There are some great prizes, and one of the grand prize is like chock full of arts and cultural activities. And they're like, this is what the little booklet looks like. And there are 20 some locations downtown that you can go in. The bookstore is one of them, etc. And online, there's a list of all the prizes. So the grand prize is like, it's like the jazz series at Jefferson Center, 4 passes to the the big new exhibit at the Taubman, and just like a big package of things. So it's a fun thing to do. So that's happening October 8th too. Let's see, we've got 9 artists who were selected. This was an application process that happened. You remember, when was this? It was a while ago, but this is a public-private partnership with the Roanoke Co-op, the Grandin Village Business Association, and the Roanoke Arts Commission. And there are 9 murals. 8 of them are up on the wall already, but we're going to be celebrating them on Saturday at 11 o'clock. There'll be a dedication. So these are 9 area artists who have done the murals, and they look terrific. Really excited about this. So come on by there if you're interested on the 8th. The Inspired grants, those are due October 31st. Let me offer this opportunity too. If anyone has taken us up on an Inspired grant, wants to talk about what they've done with that. I think, Catherine, you've already talked about your the performance with the Ukrainian pianist as far as with Sister Cities. And I think maybe Jane's already talked about hers too. Jane talked about her concert that she went to. So those are still available, up to $100 to get you and a friend or a significant other to an event where you're thinking about outreach and how the arts are connecting folks in the community. And then Third Monday Gallery Talks. The next one will be on October 17th, and there's Jane and John and Catherine have already done it. I don't think there's anybody else on the call currently, but if you're watching this after the fact, contact Catherine, and we've sent the sign up out too as well. We'll send it out again to everybody coming up soon. Now, so we're back to our guide, the Handbook for Artists Working in Community, and you know there's a whole lot of groundwork that we did in the spring. We talked about aligning your values with the work that you're doing, your skills and perspective, what it means to do a community project, and then got a little bit deeper, talked about building relationships in communities, working with stakeholders, mapping assets in a community. And then last week, scoping and planning. We talked about kind of thinking through a project and then starting to plan a project. And we really didn't go all the way because the budget is a key aspect of it. And honestly, the budget is really is your number one planning tool. And it's I'm going to open this up to everybody because as we start going through this today, we're a small group, and each of you have budgeted projects before, and you've got some of your own lessons about this as well. And some of those lessons might be things that you've learned by, as you've done it. A lot of my lessons are always the things I've learned a little bit the hard way, just by doing it one way and saying, oh, there's a better way to do this. But the budget as a management tool, as a planning tool, it really is where you sit down and think through all aspects of your project. Now, our Art Matters grants, we asked for a budget when people applied. Now, and we didn't expect it to necessarily be, everything was kind of rough with that. Now, if somebody's gotten an Art Matters grant, it's probably the time to sit down and go into it a little more deeply and think through all of the costs, the resources that you have to work with. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about just some basics of how we might want to think about that. But once you have a budget and you've thought it through, it really does provide clarity. And that clarity can be for you as you're going out to do, to spend the money. It can also be clarity for your partners and provide transparency on a project as well. Sometimes partners, as they understand the constraints that you have, fully understand the cost, they might be willing to help you identify other resources, whether they're in-kind resources or financial resources that can be added into a project. So a budget then can also become a resource development tool. And when people read a budget, and I've spent a couple of decades doing this, looking at proposed projects, and I go right to the budget, and it really does help me understand what the project is about, how it's proposed, and it's also a place, frankly, where I raise questions. So I see, I immediately think of what's not there, what is there, and what's valued in the project as well. So the way resources are allocated really shows you what's important in the project. So there are two parts, the expenses and the income. And this is a very basic sheet that they give us in this toolkit. And it doesn't have to be really complicated to get us started thinking about it. And one thing I like about this is that the expenses are listed first, and then the income is listed second. And just as a good practice, I always like to put the project first. So even without thinking about what something's going to cost, first off, what do I want to do? And we've talked about a theory of change, how a project can help advance you as an artist and your practice, how it can help advance a community organization that you might be partnering with, and how it might help advance the community. So really, with those goals in mind, and we've scoped out a project, thought about the goals, what you want to accomplish, then now you've decided this is, I think, the right project. What are you going to need to get it done? And the expenses, if you can kind of if you can first build that, rather than say, oh, well, I know I've got $3,000 for a project, and here's how I'm going to spend that. As part of that thinking, from your theory of change to your goals to the actions you're going to take, and then just kind of like 1, 2, 3. What's everything I need to do to take this action? So, and I'll go to another slide that shows one of our main things and the reason we're doing this. Now, we said that artists should be paid for their work. And we expect in most of the grants that were given this year, there are some, the artists in residence, it's solely paying for the time, and then we give a separate budget for a project in most cases. In the Art Matters grant, that budget, we're asking, and we are telling everyone that, you need to keep a recording or a record of how you're spending the money. It's okay if much of that money is paying for your time as an artist. That's what we expect. And that's the real value, we think. We've got, if it's people thinking about challenges or assets in our community, how to make the most of the assets, how to address challenges, how to engage more people around them. That's work. It's important work. And it's not just, it's not just work, it's creative work, and can be creative work. So we want you to be reimbursed for that. Now, Nikiko Masamoto, is when I was in my past life, when I was living in California, we worked with her family. She's quoted in this. They have, and this is a really interesting thing too. We're going to be hearing Katie and Mo McGonigal are going to be in a conversation coming up around food and art. And Masamoto Family Farms is outside of Fresno, and the family's amazing. Nikiko's a fourth generation Japanese family-owned or farmer, her family-owned farm, but she's also a public artist. And her father, Masamoto, is a writer as well as a farmer. They've got this organic farm. And so it's a really interesting operation, and it's a great merging. In fact, her father, Masamoto, is on the National Endowment for the Arts board, or he was a trustee there. And I think he still is. But here's a quote from her. If you're new to budgeting your time for a community-based project, you might want to double the amount of time you think it's going to take. When you're working as a solo artist, you just get to make the decisions. But when you're working in community, you're accountable to other people. That takes lots of communication, lots of checking in, lots of time. So your time is we think, one of the primary things you're going to need to budget. And often we'll find, artists thinking through a project, doing really, really good work and not paying themselves enough. So we do want you to value your time. And that's really a big piece of what we want to pay for in these projects. So looking a little bit deeper in the expenses, labor, there's that time. Now this is very, very simple. So, I should have Susan should be doing this tonight, because Susan, you're gonna have a spotlight in a little bit, and you're gonna go much deeper for us. But very simply, your expenses, if you can list out everything you think you need to get a project done, your budget ends up being your planning tool. It ends up being your shopping list. It ends up being your checklist. It can be a critical piece. So what's the cost per unit? How many units? And then what's that add up to? So this is very simple. Under labor, you might have your fees as an artist. You might have an assistant that you need for an event, and you're going to pay that person. So you'd have that listed. When we're thinking about the expenses that you have now, remember on the Art Matters grants, or on either of the grants, that it's taxable income. So you're going to want to think about that as well, and make sure if you're say your fee or your rate is $20, out of that $20, you have to pay some taxes on that. So keep that in mind. Materials and supplies, you might have, I know, like say Christine's working on potentially a number of different small projects. So she might say, okay, materials and supplies, I'm going to break this apart, and I'm going to have materials and supplies for a projection project, and I'm going to have materials and supplies for a poster project. And so in the tool, you can have lots of different subcategories, and you can do it one at a time. You don't have to have a budget all built at the same time for us. So your project might be evolving, and so your budget should be kind of a living document where you're going back to it and making changes and saying, oh, well, no, I've changed my mind on this. So here's where this money's going. And you can keep iteration after iteration of it. Sometimes I'll just copy a sheet in a spreadsheet and just do another version. So I can always go back to that old version and remember what I was thinking then. And I mentioned a spreadsheet. Excel is a terrific tool, or numbers if you're in this thing in the Apple world. But it really is terrific. And once you get it set up, it can do a lot of the work for you. And so I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'll bring up numbers. I just did one really quickly tonight, just to show us an example. Okay, can you see that? Let's see. Oh, Okay. All right, so here's just a sample. I just said, okay, for example, and I kept the same columns that they had, cost per unit, and then unit, how many units, and then the subtotal. And I said, okay, under labor, and I'll highlight that so you can see it. Under labor as a category, I've got an artist, and then I've got an assistant. And I said, okay, and I just made these numbers up, so don't take this for anything. I said, okay, under artist, let's say $20 an hour, and assistant, $15 an hour. The artist says, okay, I'm going to work 100 hours on this project, I suspect. And so and then I just, made it multiply itself out, and there's $2,000. And the assistant's working 10 hours for this one day where they're doing an event, and there's $150. And so I went ahead and built in a subtotal at the top, which is just how I like to do it. So across labor, I see that there's $2,150 already of the grant that's spent just in labor. And that's okay. That's really the important part. That's what we wanted to that's why we're hiring artists. We want to pay artists. Okay, and then so say that there is a painting project that's key to this. Okay, and the materials, that's where we start to think through. Okay, I need paint, I need brushes. What else do I need? What's something else we need? I will say drop cloth. We need drop cloths, and they're, I don't know what a drop cloth would cost. Let's say $8, and we need 5 of them. So then there's $40 that shows up. And if you're interested in like setting up a spreadsheet, you've never done it before, it doesn't take long to give you a little tutorial on it. I'm sure we can do that. So now I've got $275 in materials, and I've just got it set up so that down at the bottom, I'm getting a total from my labor, my materials, and my other expenses. And then I've already set up a little dealio where it subtracts it from my total of $3,000. So I know here by looking at it, I've already planned 24 or 25 being spent. And so I've got $575 left to spend. So I can play with this. Once I have it set up, I can play with it pretty quickly and figure out the best way that I want to spend that $3,000. Yeah, and that's the expenses side, which is pretty simple. Other expenses, the only thing that, and we can run things through if you're working on a project. Most things are, anything related to the project, anything you need to get the project done is fine. The one thing we've been thinking about lately is food, and we're not super excited about paying for food. The National Endowment for the Arts has they won't pay for food for a gathering, or they don't, in fact, it says in the language that they won't pay for the gathering if there's food that's being given away, food and drink being given away. So they don't want to pay for receptions and galas and that kind of thing. Now, sometimes food can be critical for gathering, and it might just mean that we want to provide food, but we might need to find another way to pay for it. So it could be that it's in kind, it could be that there's a partner, and it might be that when you show a budget to somebody and say, hey, we've got everything else lined up, but it'd be great to have some iced tea at the event. Someone might say, okay, well, hey, we can bring some iced tea, or our church has a big cooler, and it won't be much to mix that up. So that takes me back to the budget. Let's see. And okay, so after we have the expenses, now we said, okay, maybe we have some expenses that aren't going to be covered from that $3,000. Let's start to think through all of the income, and that income is the other part. So say you've got a grant from the city through the National Endowment for the Arts. And then it might be that people are starting to say, oh, you know what? I'd love to give you some drop cloths because I just did a project. You don't need to pay for drop cloths. So I'm going to donate those. You can list those items in your budget as an expense, and then you can list it as income, as in-kind income. And they've got a column here for that that shows that. So if you've got a grant, that's one source of funding. Donations are another source. And so this is financial donations. Earned income, say you're doing an event where you do want people to pay. Most of our events through the Art Matters grant are free. That's kind of something, just something we've encouraged. But if you had an event where you wanted to have people pay some of the cost, then you'd add that in as earned income. And then in kind. So the in kind would be, there's always got to be an estimate for what that in kind value is. Now, if you list something as income, it also needs to show up as in your expenses. So these two figures you want to match up. And if I have, if someone gives me drop cloths and I want to acknowledge that they gave me drop cloths and they were worth $40, I'd want to have drop cloths listed as a material under the expenses. So these things matching up is a terrific way to you could show this to say another funder. Say there's no requirement to raise money for any of these projects that we're doing, but if you were to show it to someone and say, okay, well here I'll share my budget with you, they can look at it and say, okay, I see how you thought through everything and where your unmet need is. Hey, Susan.
Hi, I wanted to point out though that if you've got other expenses that are not in kind, those two numbers may not match unless you split the in kind expenses out from the other expenses. Does that make sense?
Right. So you would go ahead and you would say in kind materials, it'd be drop cloths, in kind donation. And so you would have those listed.
I'd have an in kind, I'd have an other expense and maybe another section called other expense covered by in kind, or something to that effect.
Great. Yeah, that would be clean. That would be the cleanest way to do it. And it's some people don't include in-kind donations on, when they're doing grant reporting or when they're building their budget. I think it's a good thing to do if you want to have one place that has all of your information it's your primary planning document. I think it's really valuable to have it there. And that's just a super, super simple overview. Now, and Susan, I said I'd give you the floor too to give us some other tips because you're an expert in this. And like I said, there's lots of wisdom in the room around budgeting and how you do it, when you do it. And so let's share a little bit. And I'll stop the share on the screen.
Well, I wanted to mention that I like the way this one is laid out with the expenses first. I think more nonprofits should do it that way because oftentimes nonprofits have for-profit board members who don't understand that in the nonprofit world, the expense is the point. Then the matter is to come up with enough income to cover the point that we're trying to make. So I like that look.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
I did have a question though. You said they don't want to cover if there's food. If the food is listed as in kind, does it matter? Then does that muddy the water up? And then the part two of that question is, if the artist gets paid enough, maybe they can use their own money to provide in-kind food. Yes or no?
Yeah. I don't think, for our projects and especially, and I'm thinking of, say if you want the neighborhoods worked on a project with you and you want to celebrate it, I'd say, yeah, we can figure out a way to do it and get some food there. Now, and if whoever wants to donate, if the artist says, okay, well, I'm just going to take this out of my chunk and we're going to do it, that's fine. Their big thing is, not wanting to pay for, like the reception at an event, just the reception. I think they probably ran into some trouble with that at some point, especially when you get events where alcohol is served and you don't want to use a grant to pay for that.
So they just don't want dinner, drinks, and dancing on their tab. They want. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. So that's the big piece of it. Now, I do think, and frankly, like you can watch and read in the newspaper, it's like those meals and travel expenses is often where people get into trouble, whether it's an elected official, and we've seen it in the past. You can read about it in the newspaper. I think we're better off sticking to hard cost on the grants where possible. And I can always go back to the National Endowment for the Arts and ask them a question if we've got one about a specific.
Yeah, well, I do. Yeah, if I can ask a question, actually, that has already come up. So I'm planning this event at the Ginkgo Tree Festival, and we met, and we feel really good about the clarification. The event is about awareness of the space. That's our goal. So it feels real good that we're not got any other metric that we got to meet other than people coming and knowing that the space is dedicated to sister cities. But Mary Jo wants to have food. And I brought it up and said, well, I think food is a problem. When we met last week, and I think it had already came up a little bit that I don't know that we could do food. So she said that she thought she could reach out to area restaurants that could make donations because she wanted to have some food. So I think I'm wondering, all right, so I'm hearing you that that's a doable thing.
Yeah, for now. And so like the Back to Black Festival, which we already funded, there was food there, but it was food for purchase. So folks were purchasing it. If you were using the budget just to provide food, I would definitely want to go back to them and say, hey, here's how we've got this structured. And they would probably say, well, we understand the point. We could figure that out. That said, they're very busy. So it might take us a little while to get the okay on some of these things sometimes. So if you're using your budget to pay for a flyer to be designed and you're paying for a musician to perform there,
yeah, we're paying for the rental of the space and renting tables and chairs. So that's what we've already come up with. And what they would be providing would be volunteers, food, if we have food, some crafty project, and little prizes for people who do the scavenger hunt of the passports of the different countries. That's as far as we've gotten. So, we're early in it. So I'm wondering if any of you would like to volunteer to help Susan go over the budget, make sure that we get our ducks in a row, because it's obviously that's not my strong suit, so I'm not saying you personally have to do that, but I think maybe another time, if anyone else is having trouble, to do a little meeting that we go through a real actual budget and make sure we do it right before we submit it, and then there's troubles down the road.
And I have a question. Doug, you can probably answer this, because when I'm doing budgets for corporations, we're budgeting depreciation, the spaces that we have that we're now using, that it's applying to this. Are we including any of that? It's cash basis only.
Yeah, cash basis only. And I'll tell you, even the way they look at this is a really nice thing. Now, one artist she's making a film, and so she needed a gimbal, I think, and she needed a microphone. And for the National Endowment for the Arts, any equipment under $5,000 is considered supplies. So which means it's a consumable, or is that the word, consumable?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's not expected to last beyond the project. So we don't have to do depreciation or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't know when it was talking about space, like Catherine works at home. Is she allocating so much of her floor space and toward rent, that kind of thing? So that's the question I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, and these grants are so small. There is some guidance around that. But these grants are so small, you could basically just do your labor and then and take it out of that. Like I said, if someone said, okay, I'm $30 an hour, I can do this in my head, $30 an hour, and it's 100 hours for me to do the project, that's $3,000. We just want everybody to be able to document that. So it could just be on one sheet of paper where you say, this project's taking me this many hours, and you throw that in your file. And that way, in case, we ever need to justify it, and you can upload that in your monthly report so that we retain it for you. You don't even have to retain it. And well, you actually do have to ask you to retain it. But if you're like me and it's in a file somewhere in your closet, we can get quick access to it if you upload it in our system. Yeah. So budgets don't sound like they're fun, but they really, the way Catherine just said it, so you can go through it with us, and it is good to have somebody else look at it and say, okay, and that's what the coaches can help do as well. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about, the cleanup costs? Is there a fee for the trash cans? That kind of thing. So that's the budget. Super, super simple. Anybody else have any best practices or questions?
I think I just wanted to reiterate what you said about not just doing your budget, but maybe getting somebody else to look at it, because it's good to bounce that off, because you really do tend to be in the how to get it going, not how to get it undone. And a lot of times people forget things. I know I go to conferences sometimes and they forget to leave the gap, between sessions, between speakers, so it's, there's always this, this is great, but what are you going to tape it up with? Or how are you going to put it to the wall? Those kinds of things are good to bounce off of somebody else, just to think about.
Oh, I do have another question. So specifically, like, say, we've talked a little bit between us, but just for the whole group, if I am paying a musician, how do I expect to, do they send me an invoice, I okay it, I send it to City of Roanoke? Is there a time frame? Like, if I'm telling somebody you're going to be being paid, do I give them like a range?
Great. Yeah, this is a terrific question, Catherine. I'll share my screen and I'll look at it. I'll pull up a couple of things. And let's see, I think it's going to be on this one. Too many windows open. And let's see. Okay. You're looking at the back end of the city's website there. Okay. So remember, if you go to roanokearts.org and we go to the artist login, and okay, I'd already logged in, but remember it's YOTA. And so there's a monthly, so under the monthly report form, I mentioned the budgeting worksheet. It's right here as a PDF, just so you have easy access to it. Now, I've got a little thing here on purchasing supplies locally. We really do want to purchase supplies locally. And now this applies to artists in residence who we are purchasing the supplies for you. Art Matters grants, everybody's so different, and you might not even be purchasing the supplies, might be paying for your time. You're in charge of your own purchases. For the artist in residence, for your project funds, we've held those. We didn't contract with you for those, so we've held them. And we've got, we encourage, if you need to buy something, we really do encourage you to look locally for it. So we've got some, a lot of things you can get here in town. And we can make the purchase for you with a credit card. I've got a handy city credit card. And that gives us tax exempt as well. So we can save a little bit of money from your budget without paying the taxes, which some of it would come back to us anyway. But it'd be tax exempt. If we can purchase it with a credit card, it makes it very easy. The vendor can get their money right away. If they can't take a credit card, we can do an invoice. If they worked with the city before, we don't need to get a W-9. But if they haven't worked with the city before, then we have to get a W-9 from them. And then it's like net 30 is their policy. So they give us an invoice and we need to pay it within 30 days. It's we hope it's paid within 30 days. It'd be a much faster for them if they use a credit card. So you just need to email me kind of with what you need. Now we've got a fund request form that's here. I got one today from an artist. I haven't looked at it yet. If you're listening and you're not later on, I haven't looked at it yet, but I did see that I had one come in today. We can do purchases online. And now remember, if we are making a purchase online, that none of that money is supporting our economy here locally. But if say, and we've got some data on the little fund request form, and it's oh, you know what? I did that wrong. This is on purchasing supplies locally. Okay, for every $100 you spend in the locally owned business, $68 will stay in the community. So that's the locally owned business, right? As opposed to a chain that's nationally owned. What happens when you spend the same $100 at a national chain? Only $43 stays in the community. Now, if you purchase at, say, Amazon, none of that's cycling back through the community. And not to just pick on that one, there are lots of other national vendors. But if there's a supply that you can get here locally, we prefer to do that. Yeah, if we can. So did I answer the question, Catherine, or was there? So you can email me. You can fill out this form, and it will say the quantity. Let's see.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the musician and the person designing the flyer, which I'm trying to work within, the network that we are already created with the artists that are part of this group. But I don't know that they're all, so anybody that works with this, who's from this group, who's part of the artist already has a W-9, but somebody outside of that is going to have to provide a W-9 to the city.
Some of them are, yeah, but some folks have a Square on their phone and they're taking credit cards because they're out doing booths at events, and so right. if they want to, we can do a credit card with them if they want.
Oh, I see. So yeah. So just be specific. Like if I tell Jordan Fallon, we got you for music 11 to 12:30, it's $100. He can get paid with his Square reader if possible.
Yeah, he'd have to contact me, and okay. you can put him in touch with me. And then, so I'm keeping a track of these things too. I got a spreadsheet. We love the spreadsheet. I got a spreadsheet going on that. But you'll need to track it too and enter it in your budget so that you know how much money you got left. Yeah. Well, we're at time, and I'm going to stop the recording, and then, but I can hang on and we can talk about very specific things. Thank you all for spending some time with us tonight. And then next week is going to be Catherine's in-person session, 5 slots left. Sign up if you're interested. And I'm going to stop the recording now, but I can share that link for signing up if anybody needs it.